A very good morning to one and all out there. Today, as we know that we people are having a webinar on a newer concept, a very much a familiar, unfamiliar sort of a concept, but very much in today's market, that is the Internet of Things. Usually, what we people are doing is we people are messaging or we people are mailing to our friends, particularly talking about human beings. Okay, so we people are using either WhatsApp or let's say Gmail, Yahoo Mail, whatever it is. We people are doing or we people are connected with each other through this base of internet. Okay, so what we people are going on for is that if we people says that we people are using internet, now that what is that internet? We people are using a platform which is which makes us connect throughout the world, which makes us connect throughout the world. We can not just share the text contents, but even videos, images, animations, and much more things. Even we are connected in a real time manner, that means in a live manner, that one can speak up, and as what we people are doing right now, that I am speaking and rest all the people are hearing of what I am saying. So usually this was the thing what we people were using as an internet. But now there is a new concept. This new concept is Internet of Things. What we people are doing is that we don't want human beings anymore to be connected to various areas, various devices, so that they can be controlled using a human being. हमको ऐसा नहीं चाहिए कि वहां पर हम किसी ह्यूमन बीइंग को इन्वॉल्व करें कि वो इस तरीके के किसी भी डिवाइस को फर्दर मोर मॉनिटर करे, कंट्रोल करे और एनीथिंग लाइक दैट. So what we people are doing is we people are connecting these types of devices through some IP addresses, through some sensors, actuators, so that they can collect the data, whatever happening to their environment. They can collect that data and then they can further transmit that data to the server, so that according whatever action is needed over there, that can be taken automatically. Means no human being is required anymore at that particular position. So all these types of physical objects, let's say for example, a very simple thing, if we can discuss this, that if I'm going to my home and I want my AC to be operable before I reach my home. So what I would be doing is I would just be taking my mobile on, I would be connecting my mobile with that AC and will set a temperature and even will start working of the AC. So by the time I reach my home, it might take another 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes that when I reach my home. Until the time when I reach my home, my room is ready with the exact temperature which I was expecting to be, or something like that. A very common example, everybody must have heard that there is an ad where a person says that a speaker from Amazon, that Alexa, play this song. So it is a very easy concept that okay, Alexa, play this song with whatever it is, XY that song, play this song, swag se karenge sabka swagat. So let's say if I say this word, that Alexa, play the song swag se karenge sabka swagat. So how did that Alexa gets to understand the thing that the machine, that speaker needs to play this song? That machine senses our voice, the way I speak, that the machine senses that voice, takes it onto the internet, then matches that words, which is now converted into something like text message, which is now converted into the text message. It matches that text with the database of the songs, and then it finds that okay, these are the songs over there. So it is not necessary, if you, let's say for example, if you are asking for a song which is a very common song, then it might happen that it may not play the exact song which you were saying. It might be that it might be play certain another song. So these types of devices like Alexa, or let's say our smart band, what people are using, it says okay, your heartbeat is getting this much, or your body temperature is getting this much, or your diabetes is getting this much. All these types of automatic readings of various different areas, various different things is defined as that how these devices are taking these things, these sensors, these actuators take the things from the environment. When they takes it from the environment, they put it onto the internet. We would be doing this now. They put it onto the internet, and then further the server from which these devices are maintained, they start acting over there. It is a very good one that Kevin Ashton, somewhere in 1999, first talked about the physical objects getting connected through internet. And after 10 years, 2009, it was the first device that we get into the market that which was having a capability of connecting itself through internet. Then in today's world, there are series of devices, series of operating systems, hardware are available which are directly connected to the internet of the things. Let us just discuss what are the concepts through which these things are connected. Here we can see that everything get connected through some embedded systems. It is whether it is agriculture, whether it is malls from where we can buy the products, whether we are talking about a wireless connection. We is not talking about a Wi-Fi system, but when we are transferring the data in through Wi-Fi and are not using the internet IP addresses. Then there are concept of smart homes, smart cities, and very much well known is the vehicles and assets. Recently there was an ad from MG Hector where a person is standing over his room somewhere in 2 or 3 floors above, and just take his mobile out and speaks up that MG close the sunroof, and the car which was standing on the road, it closes the roof automatically. So these things happen through this only this particular concept, Internet of Things. What we are discussing here is that there are certain hardwares, there are certain devices which are capable of handling themselves using the IP address, using the internet which we people were usually using for our human beings interconnectivity. They have the capability of communicating with each other, receiving and sending data signals so that they can sense the things, actuate the things, and can work accordingly. Some of the very important basic, let's say very important things, that how these components get connected with each other, and then they secure our data and start working on the internet systems. First thing that is required for our Internet of Things is hardware and devices. It says that the hardware and devices is basically at the heart of the Internet of Things, because until and unless a device is not there, a hardware is not there, how what the human being can do? We need a hardware, we need a device that has the capability of sensing the things, so that it can sense its environment, whatever is happening to its nearby. It can sense that environment and actuate the things. Let's say that it should start executing the things, whatever is required from that physical world. So once the hardware is connected, that hardware gets connected to certain internet things. Here the hardware reads the data, senses the data from its nearby environment, and then starts executing the things. What then happens is that when these data are read, these data are further used by certain embedded programming. There are predefined softwares into that system which has the capability of sending this recorded data onto the internet platform through that IP address. So we require certain embedded platform, these types of softwares which will be making these data transmit to this server side. Once these data are transmitted, the most important thing that has been taken care of is the security, because it is not only the devices, there can be cameras, there can be certain confidential things which you are transmitting through that device. So it is very much important that these confidential data is not shared with any of the outer person. Any sort of interrogation should not be there, so that our data might face certain loss. So it's a security is a very important feature at the time of transmitting the data. Once the data gets started transmitted, it is being stored onto the cloud. We use the network system. Now we are talking about the international network. We are talking about this particular network, and into that network these data get stored on the cloud of the company or of your home or whatever it is, from where the server takes the access of this cloud and then further starts whatever execution or whatever step is required, so as to conclude with whatever action is to be taken over there. So the data once gets transmitted through this software in a very secured manner, the data gets transmitted or gets stored onto the cloud. Once the data gets stored on the cloud, the server starts his work. It starts the analysis task, it starts the prediction task, that what predictions are required what are the different analytics that is to be taken on that data that has been collected by that hardware, which has been transmitted by that software, which has been transmitted securely by that software, and then this data is stored onto the cloud. So this server starts taking analysis or starts making analysis of these types of data. That if, let's say for an example, that if there is a camera onto your door and certain unauthorized entry is seen through that camera, what that camera would be doing is that camera will take an immediate action that a person who is unknown, because it is not stored in their database. So a person who is not aware from this particular family is try to opening the door, it will take the data, it will transmit the data to the owner of that home. Now the server is predefined with certain things, that if the person over there is not a part of that family, then what should happen is there should be a certain alarm over there, so that the person who is not from that family or who is unauthorized, who is having an unauthorized entry, might get feared of that what will happen, or some people might come or anything like that. Particularly, this data will be transmitted to the owner of the home. So this is what is happening, that we are expecting that home camera, which is secured just to open the door, that home camera should act as an chowkidar of our home. Okay, so it should be something like that, and then the data, this data can be taken over there and then should move the data ahead. Finally, what happens is that a machine learning and an artificial intelligence software is involved over there, because every time it is not possible to take the exact textual data. There might be sometimes that the people would speak the thing. If I'm using English, let's say for example, my accent, the way I pronounce the word, the way I pronounce certain letters, or the way I speak English might be different from different person. So it is required an artificial intelligence that takes the data, that understands in what manner this owner of this particular device used to speak up. So it will take that data, it will convert that data into an understandable contents. That understandable content will be stored to machine learning sort of system, so that in future, if anything as such happens, the machine can automatically respond, because this thing has already happened. Something like what we see, that we select a song in YouTube, and then that is in the particular song or particular things related to that song keeps on suggested by that our YouTube device. So this is a machine learning. So whenever we speaks up, this artificial intelligence takes our data, tries to understand what the owner is trying to convey. This matter is then stored into that computer, so that the machine can learn through this particular event and then can act accordingly in the future whenever the things happen. So this is somewhat about the components of IoT, that how these things are required, and once these all things get together, this IoT makes its work start working. So this was just a basic information from what we need to understand from the IoT. The rest will be handled by Kaustubh sir. Sorry sir, if I have taken a bit more time, but this in, in the way of conveying, I just took a bit more time. So this was all about just the basic of the IoT. Just the basic of the
Thank you,
IoT.
sir. Thank you. You have, sir. I think given the gist of the IoT, and it covers all the basics that people need to know.
Yes, yes,
So
exactly, sir.
I'll,
Because
Actually, is giving the cusp knowledge.
right, sir. Right. This is
because
absolutely essential when
yes,
it comes
yes,
to
sir.
understanding
Because
IoT.
Kaustubh sir is going to tell us about that what are the future of these things, or what are the different application areas where we people are right now using our IoT. Okay, so just before understanding this thing, that where we are using our IoT or where we should use this IoT, I must make the people understand that what exactly the IoT is. So thank you, sir. The
True.
platform is all yours, Kaustubh sir. Please, if you
Thank
can
you, sir.
continue.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you,
Thank you so
sir.
much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali Yawarji, and thank you, Kulvinder ma'am. I think I'll try to explain what the current scenario of IoT is. As I have mentioned here, technology, the market, the challenges, and the predictions for the future. IoT, the concept of IoT has been around for a while. I mean, 1931, one Mr. Rube Goldberg, who was a cartoonist, he had created concepts like these. The cartoon that you can see on the slide, that some person is eating, and while the napkin has been automated. So the person will eat, and while he eats, the napkin will wipe his mouth. So this was a concept where Rube Goldstein would use to make fun of such ideas, because it apparently does a very simple thing through a very complicated set of actions. So this is, I think, what IoT currently has become, or is tending to become, because even for our small minor things that we used to do quite naturally, have become something of a complex articulation, complex orchestration of devices, that to simply maybe play a song, I have to now tell a third party device, Alexa, to do so. So I could just simply choose a song and I could play it. But now I have to go through so much complication. But I think the purpose is not that. IoT's purpose is to make things simple. And IoT is a natural response to the digital world, because internet has come in and it has taken over every aspect of our life. So one main reason for IoT to really come up has been that lines are blurring between the real and the virtual world. Why I would say that? I'll just show a slide, and I'll ask the participants to maybe comment if they agree with me or not. If Because most of your life's activities have now found some way or the other to be digitized. So there are still many things that are quite real. You cannot really digitize everything, like food, healthcare, your energy generation, your transportation, logistics, housing and real estate, hospitality, and in fact, disasters, real world disasters. These cannot be really, solved, or these cannot be really changed by digital technologies. But that is also happening fast, I think, which the overlapping area between digital and real world, you will see that your jobs are becoming more and more digitized, your education is becoming more and more digitized. Case in point, this webinar that we are doing today. The sports are becoming more and more digitized. Events, all your live events are becoming, you're live streaming everything now. Your crime is becoming digital now. If you are more afraid of being hacked than being really broken into your house. So and hence your security needs are also shifting from the real world to the digital world. So all the things that could be digital have already become digital, like your mobile apps, TV, your entertainment basically has become digital. Your e-commerce, you're now buying more and more things online. Social media is completely digital. Even your banking is becoming slowly digital, and less people are going to the bank branch to do their transactions anymore. So since every physical thing is now becoming more and more digitized, it is becoming more and more possible to connect everything through devices. So hence the Internet of Things. This is I just wanted to give a brief on that. So while we proceed with Internet of Things, I think we have got some engineering students out here. I hope some management students out there. Well, you will have to pay attention to IoT in terms of architecture, because I think when Ali Yawarji was explaining in his components of IoT, that's the basic of what a IoT infrastructure or a IoT architecture is. So I try to simplify all kinds of architectures. Well, various IoT infrastructures used in separate cases have got their own different architectures. So, but more or less, I try to summarize every architecture into one slide, you will see this how everything is divided into the real world and the digital world. On the left hand side screen of screen, you can see all the things that are happening in the real world, and all the on the right hand side you will see all the things that are happening in the digital world, and the line separating them is the edge. The edge, I'll try to explain, I'll explain it in further slides also. The edge is where all the transition happens from real world to the digital world and digital world to the real world. This is where you use your sensors, actuators that Ali Awarji was speaking about, where you actually convert the people's actions through some sensors. You measure them and you convert them into digital data, and then that data is run through some data processing or even machine learning right now. Well, the data is stored on a cloud infrastructure. Somewhere you have to store the data. There could be a data center, there could be a process to do that, and then that data has been analyzed through algorithms or through machine learning, and then that data is converted into some kind of an information that is converted into knowledge, and then you bring out insights from that data, and then you put it to test. You have some control data and you use some kind of a device intermediary where on the edge, which changes that insight into some kind of an experience. Let's say the most common example is your household smart devices like Alexa, where Alexa, if the Alexa is good at understanding your language, so that's the experience. Because if you are telling Alexa to do something and it always misinterprets, it always does something else, that's a bad experience for you, right? So you will slowly you'll slowly start avoiding using Alexa for your small tasks. But if the data is being analyzed better, if the language understanding is done better, natural language processing is better, then of course your experience will improve and you will start becoming more and more dependent on Alexa for doing these small things, eventually to a point where one day you might actually stop pushing the buttons to turn on your lights. You will just simply tell your Alexa to do that. So that happens in the real world. So experience happens in the real world. It affects people, and then those people again do some actions that acts as a feedback, and new set of data comes in, and this is how the cycle keeps going on. So your product or a service on the digital layer is being improved by this data cycle. Now, you can see a real world example of that in terms of industry IoT. Industrial IoT is the upcoming segment of Internet of Things, where a lot of industrial operations are becoming automated. You might have heard of automation, and that's where that's simply an extension of the architecture that I just showed you before. So exactly the operational assets, your production equipment and transportation and heavy equipment, these all give some sort of data to the sensors, the actuators, and then those go into the information technology side, where it is IT processes your data, it stores it in the cloud, does some kind of analysis, and gets back to the operational technology, where through actuators it again operates those assets, operates your production equipment. So this is how IoT is essentially there. It's a very simple thing actually. if you say talk about IoT, it's very complicated or something. It's not, because all of those things are available to us. It's very simple, but the architecture is important. The better your architecture, the better your experience to the users. This is an example of a smart healthcare platform. Now you see how many layers those components of IoT are being placed. Like there is a data layer where all your data is being stored and data is being analyzed. Then there is analytical layer where there's a recommendation system for medical cases where it starts with the user, where their case studies, their clinical history is being analyzed, and that gives some kind of feedback to the layer of services in IoT, where maybe your medical services, your hospital services, those are being told by your data that such and such action has to be taken for such and such patient. So this is just an example, like how your patient, your doctor, your family are all connected through various devices and through an architecture of IoT devices and infrastructure to create some kind of a fruitful, actionable result that helps the patient and their family in the end. In fact, the extension of such kind of technologies are now getting into the whole civic administration level, the government level, because now governance is using more and more IoT to really control the complex aspects of society, of the civic infrastructure, like your city itself, your your hospitals, your highways, everything is being connected in some way. The ultimate purpose of all this, you might ask, that what are we trying to achieve through it? Is it only to make things easy? Is it only to make it automatic? Everything is automatic, so humans will have nothing to do. Well, not really, because that would mean that humans have no other way to go but just become lazy and become useless. But that is not the purpose. Eventually, you have to understand, all the students out here who are there, or the engineers and all the management students who are here, who will eventually go out in the field, and you will have to face somehow आपको IoT के साथ कहीं ना कहीं आपका पाला पड़ेगा, और आपको अब ये इसकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग आपको डेवलप करनी पड़ेगी. तो आपके पास लॉजिक क्या है, रैशनल क्या है? Why do you want to automate everything? Why do you want to connect every device? So that has to have some basis in humanity. In some way, it should be helpful to the society. It should be helpful to the governance. It should be economically viable. It should be, it should utilize the resources more sustainably. It should create some value in the opportunities that are there. So I have created a chart where I've tried to explain the purpose of these smart systems. I'm not going. This is not technical. The technical part you will know. I think young people know much more about the technologies and all the components of IoT. Devices everybody can use. 4-year kids are doing that. But the thing is, what is the ultimate goal? What is the ultimate purpose of IoT? So there, I think I've created this chart with 4 aspects to it. There is lifestyle, there is welfare, there is economy, and there is environment. These 4 things have to be kept in the center and should focus on society, the government, the available resources, and the feasibility and the opportunities that it creates. Of course, IoT well, some might say that more automation takes away your jobs, but you have to create some method or some way in which it does not take away jobs, it creates more opportunities. So that's where your this synergy of everything comes in. So society will have to be more adaptable. Ultimately, it should become more feasible for diversity. Your governance should get more accountability through IoT, and also it should create more freedom. It should be more democratic. It should allow more freedom to the people. Your opportunities should become more feasible, but also create more value. for the people. Your resources should be used more sustainably, but it also creates fulfillment in the society. So I think I'll just let you have a look at it for 2 minutes, and maybe you can ponder upon it. This is a topic for a lengthier discussion, I guess. I guess I'll move on. So what's the evolution of IoT? I'll just come into the market side of it, because I represent the industry. So also industry aspect of IoT should be brought up. Lately, the IoT has gained a lot of traction, and it has developed into its own market segments. Well, broadly, I can say there is a wearables market where all your wearable devices and technologies that are connected with IoT are being there. So this is a very lucrative market. Other one is smart home devices. Of course, everybody has some or the other device at their home which is smart, and they know how those things work. Then there is industrial IoT, very key for the economy for the future, because that is where your more efficiency, more sustainable use of resources will come in. And then there is, of course, smart city IoT. Udaipur itself is a smart city, and your government is implementing a lot of small things that might not be visible, but those are there. And ultimately, a city, when it gets become completely smart, I think we have certain benefits from that. Like smart traffic management is one good example I can give, where your traffic system does not have to invest a lot on real infrastructure, but through digitization, through IoTs, that same infrastructure that used to be there can be more efficiently managed in future. So that is very essential market segment, and I'll just show how those segments are growing. I'll just take three segments. One is your smart home market. You will see that around in 2018, the market was around 76.6 billion US dollars, which is expected to grow up to 151.4 billion dollar in 2024. So it's a growth rate of 12.2. Of course, these are pre-COVID-19 predictions, might be affected by the whole economy slowing down. But I think this is a segment where most people will get employment in future in technical sense. All the electrical engineers, all the electronics engineers, they will have a good scope of work in this sector. Then we have the industrial IoT market, which is also growing at a lesser pace than home IoT, but still quite a good opportunity there. Well, by 2025, it is expected to become 110.6 billion US dollar market. So it's about the interest of those who want to work in the industrial IoT sector. It's also very interesting. Then we have all the smart cities market, which is phenomenally rising now. That is 22.5% growth is expected, and by 2023, that market is expected to become 219 billion US dollars. So I think civic infrastructure, all the public IoT devices, and on the public IoT infrastructure, I think that's the next avenue for most people to consider. And I'll just quickly go through some challenges as well, because when you are talking about markets and when you're talking about using IoT for such and such purposes, you will always have to consider the challenges first. First is interoperability and compatibility of protocols. Well, I'll just use a meme to explain this. How your new iPhone don't fit the old charger. And Steve Jobs is your hero, is he? Because ultimately what happens here is, there is so much complication in the protocols. I'll just show for an example. I'll just go through some technologies that are there in IoT. You'll see that IoT software technologies, you will find a lot of things that are already there. There are mature technologies, like cloud computing, IoT platforms, edge analytics. These are there. But then there are more things that are coming up, like IoT marketplaces, digital twins, container security, IoT security platforms, real-time databases, serverless FAS systems, and deep learning. These are all things that are coming up. Then in IoT hardware technologies, you will find a lot of things that are already used for current state of technology in IoT. Then there are a lot of things that are coming up. A small example of technologies that are coming up in connectivities, IoT connectivity technology. You might have heard a lot about Huawei, China's company Huawei, that is being banned, or European countries are considering to ban, or India is considering to ban Huawei. Why is so? Because it's a technology that a country, like 5G technology, that's the main thing. वो सारी फसाद की जड़ वो है. 5G technology जो Huawei develop कर रही है, that's the 5th generation of cellular networks. Of course, it brings a lot of promise for IoT. It says, all your IoT infrastructure will become very fast by using this technology. But there are concerns. There are techno-ethical concerns with such companies controlling those technologies. And you will see how in this entire list, you will find so many different companies coming up with so many different technologies, and everything has to work seamlessly in IoT. But then there are interoperability issues. Then there are incompatibility between platforms, incompatibility between connectivities. So this situation will always be there. And what the current situation with China, for example, Huawei, why people are against Huawei? Because China as a country has become adversarial, and people do not trust them. So that's the major, those are non-technical issues which are affecting the technologies, and those will continue to do so in future. And we will have, that is one of the major challenges. I think you will have to be prepared for it. One solution for this could be that why our Indian engineers and Atmanirbhar Bharat की जब बात करते हैं प्रधानमंत्री जी, तो I'll just want to mention this कि आप लोगों के पास onus है अब कि you develop some kind of technology, because all these technologies that I showed you is ज़्यादातर foreign में बनी है. All these technologies are being controlled by foreign companies. They are being created by them. Their intellectual properties are owned by them. So हम इंडियंस जब कोई IoT की बात करते हैं तो मोस्टली ये होता है कि हम बोरो टेक्नोलॉजी से ये सब क्रिएट करने की बात करते हैं. बट व्हाट इज द नीड ऑफ द आवर इज कि आप लोगों को नई टेक्नोलॉजीज इंडिया में बनानी पड़ेगी. मे बी ये इंटरऑपरेबिलिटी और कंपैटिबिलिटी ऑफ प्रोटोकॉल्स का प्रॉब्लम इंडियन इंजीनियर सॉल्व कर लें बाय क्रिएटिंग सम काइंड ऑफ गेटवे टेक्नोलॉजीज जो इन टेक्नोलॉजीज को इजीली सीमलेसली कनेक्ट कर सके. मे बी नई तरह की प्रोटोकॉल्स बनाए हम जो बाकी कंट्रीज अडॉप्ट करें. तो दिस इज समथिंग दैट वी हैव टू थिंक ऑफ if you want to really progress in IoT. Then outdated hardware and software, this is a huge issue, because this is just a rationale of the industry. Like patches for many expected IoT cybersecurity breaches are also not realistic. A far less cumbersome solution and more profitable for manufacturers is for us to discard and replace the compromised IoT thing. So as I told you, cyber crime ho raha hai. Crime has become digital, and what it will affect your digital devices. Hackers will attack your systems. So when that happens, when your device is being compromised, what would you really do some security patch, software patch for that particular device? Well, manufacturers के लिए वो feasible नहीं है. In fact, वो they will do some kind of a planned obsolescence कि ऐसी नौबत आए नहीं, उससे पहले आपका डिवाइस पुराना हो जाए और आपको डिस्कार्ड करना पड़े. अल्टीमेटली आपको नई डिवाइस खरीदनी पड़े. So this kind of a thinking in IoT, what it will eventually create or is already creating is the problem of e-waste. This is one major challenge that we are yet to find an answer for. Because e-waste के जो अपने problems I think you can go on to the internet, you can search what are the challenges of e-waste. I will not explain that in detail, but this is going to affect us environmentally to a degree that there could be some environmental disaster, and we will have to work around that. Then of course there are human issues, like even when you are so smart, you could be very smart, but still you will have difficulty in managing your smart devices. Like simple password management is so difficult for people, is it not? I will just ask, how many of you remember your password, or let's say Google Gmail password? Because Gmail आपके डिवाइस पे खुला रहता है तो आप हमेशा उसको मतलब यूज कर लेते हैं, लेकिन अभी मैं आपको बोलूं कि आप में से कितने लोग Gmail का पासवर्ड आपको याद है? तो just maybe comment on this. This is very interesting for me to know, क्योंकि this problem will happen. Your devices, एक बार आपने पासवर्ड लगा के छोड़ दिया, आप लोग कितनों को राउटर का पासवर्ड याद है अपना? वो this is something that is a human challenge, और उसके लिए of course there are more password management systems coming in, but ultimately those are also vulnerable to hacking. Somebody can get your entire list of passwords and they can just intrude your systems and do anything that they want to do. I'll show you how that kind of a chaos looks like. Then there are of course limitations of the AI. आप machine learning और artificial intelligence की बात करते हैं, लेकिन उसमें भी बहुत सारी issues हैं. Largely आपके botnets और जो even जो smart viruses हैं, वो भी आपके devices को जिस तरह से attack करेंगे in future, उसके लिए भी आपको तैयार रहना पड़ेगा और manufacturers को तैयार रहना पड़ेगा, and maybe all the engineers will have to find solutions for those things. A complex hyper-connected network cloud providers have developed and can produce a single point of failure for hundreds of businesses, government entities, critical infrastructures, and healthcare organizations. Major challenge. आप स्मार्ट सिटी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की बात कर रहे हैं, लेकिन कल को आपकी सारी सिटी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की सारी चीजें इंटरकनेक्टेड है, और एक सिंगल पॉइंट ऑफ फेलियर अगर होता है तो your entire city grid goes down, your entire city healthcare infrastructure goes down. So are we willing to risk that? Are we willing to give so much power to few companies and risk all the hackers attacking that? हमने ये चीज, that is something that is a dilemma that we will have to address. Like polymorphic malware is not new, but it is also but it's about to take on a new face by leveraging AI to create sophisticated new code that can learn to evade detection through machine written routines. तो अब viruses, अब आप ऐसे viruses बना सकते हैं जो ऐसा, आप एक बार आपने एक छोटा सा कोड लिख के डाल दिया और वो उसने अफेक्ट कर दिया, ऐसा नहीं है. तो that code, that could be a intelligent virus. It could learn from all the security implementations that you have done, and they can bypass all those. So these are just some examples. Like IoT botnets can direct enormous swarms of connected sensors like thermostats or sprinkler controllers to cause damaging and unpredictable spikes in infrastructure use, leading to things like power surges, destructive water hammer attacks, or reduced availability of critical infrastructure on a city or state-wide level. So these are some big challenges in IoT for the future that you will have to figure out. I'll just show you a short clip, and so she has to leave. So all this, what does to people is, because there are cases, there have been such cases in some places, and what it does is reduces the confidence of the users. So majorly, if you are considering to create a IoT device or want to create a company or startup that works in the IoT sector, your biggest challenge will be the confidence of the users, because market confidence research on IoT security says that about 96% of businesses and 90% of consumers believe that there should be IoT security regulations. Like now, people are asking the government to create some kind of regulation for these IoT companies and IoT securities. So 54% of consumers own an average of 4 IoT devices, but only 14% believe that they are knowledgeable on IoT device security. So you might be using Alexa, you might be using smartphones to connect, you might be using a smart TV to connect with your internet, but you do not really know, most people do not understand the security aspects of it, and they are not confident whether it is secure enough. Like today we are talking about, we are doing this meeting on GoToMeeting instead of Zoom, because we do not trust Zoom, because we do not trust China. So this kind of a lack of confidence will come in on devices, on protocols, on apps, on connectivity technologies. Then 65% of consumers are concerned about hacker controlling their IoT devices, while 60% are concerned about the data being leaked. Like there are many horror stories about Alexa and Google smart devices, leaking the information, or what you are telling that device that is being heard by the hackers. So those kind of things are happening, and in future we will need to address them majorly. And lastly, there's a low this is a lower challenge. That's why I've kept it in the last of the presentation, is IP exhaustion and the boundaries of technologies, because all your IoT basically works on IP based technology. You need a internet protocol, and you need the IP ports for the devices. And now more the devices, more the protocols, all those IPs are being utilized. So this had already happened in 2010, when all your IP addresses were just exhausted. खत्म हो गए सारे IP addresses आपके devices को assign करते करते. So they had to create a new protocol. IPv4 था पहले, अब IPv6 आ गया है. So we have addressed that temporarily. अभी हमने IPv6 में हमने IP को extend कर दिया है. But eventually it will happen, because आपके जैसे ही IoT devices बढ़ेंगे, IP protocols बढ़ेंगे, ज्यादा से ज्यादा devices IPs use करेंगे, तो वो IPs भी एक दिन exhaust कर जाएंगे, and we will have to go for something else. So this is also an area where some of our more scientist minded students can work on, maybe for future, कि आप नई IP protocols पे काम करें, ताकि अगर जब हम वो प्रॉब्लम फेस करेंगे, तब इंडिया आगे होगा बाकी कंट्रीज से. This is a area where you can work in. So I think that's my presentation. Thank you very much. Any questions that you may ask, you may want to ask, can now ask me.
Ali sir? I think we can ask the audience if they have anything to ask, any question, and they can put on their cameras so that they're visible and they can ask whatever they have to related to IoT. No, I don't think they have anything to ask.
Okay.
Ali sir, you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I was just disconnected. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Due to some internet connection, don't know, miss. Even I could not hear the last slides presented by Kaustubh sir, and even
the last slide. Should I repeat it?
Sir, please.
Okay. This is just a situation that has already happened in 2010. The you have IP addresses on all your devices. Your router has an IP address, your laptop has an IP address, your mobile has an IP address. So all these IP addresses, there is a limitation to that. There is a certain number of IP addresses that you can issue. Like IPv4 protocol had around 4 billion IPs that could be issued, and those were issued by 2010. So in around 1990, we started panicking because we realized that these IP addresses will soon exhaust, and then what will happen, because the number of internet connected devices are exponentially rising. So what will happen eventually when the IP addresses will be exhausted? So then in around 19, 2000, some people came out with suggestions to create a new IP platform, that is IPv6 now. So we have addressed this issue particularly. IPv6 has now resolved this issue for temporarily, but eventually the IP addresses of IPv6 will also exhaust, because now we are increasingly issuing IP addresses to devices. So one way to solve it is to create gateway devices which do not have IP addresses. But the other way around is that maybe some engineers out here who can work on future technologies, they can probably create another protocol that solves this. Maybe create more scope for your IP addresses in future. In that way, when that time comes, when IP addresses start exhausting again in IPv6, India would be ahead. India could be ahead in that kind of a situation, and that will be beneficial, definitely beneficial for us.
Sir, I think I have a question. IoT,
Yes.
will it actually bring a drastic change in production pattern worldwide? Have a drastic change in the production pattern?
Well, it will certainly make things more efficient, and it will. When I go back to my slide on purpose of having an IoT, is that in the resource segment you can see that ultimately it will create a more sustainable environment. So your carbon footprint can decrease, your energy consumption can decrease, your food production may improve, because even now agriculture is a sector where IoT is majorly coming up. IoT based agriculture is now the next big thing. All your automated irrigation systems and all your automated harvesting systems that might actually improve the food production to a level that we might be self-sustained in food. So those are the kind of things that IoT will do, in both from the governance aspect and from the industry aspect. So I think more efficiency will definitely change some patterns of the industry. I think some wasteful patterns that industry has been adopting for so long. Because you see, when Henry Ford came up with the first assembly line, it improved the production of automobiles drastically. So similarly, when this kind of a technology comes in, I think it will be a game changer. Yes.
One
There
more question
is one.
is asked.
How
There
is
is a question
IoT
asked from one of the.
applicable in pharma industry?
Sorry, ma'am.
How is IoT applicable in the pharma industry? This is asked by Mr. Nikunj.
Well, I
How will
think
IoT be? Yeah.
true. I think you might have heard of the term called telemedicine. I think most people would be aware of this. Now, what is happening is even in India, what we are doing here is we are creating some kind of a IoT-based infrastructure for medical diagnostics and pharmaceuticals. So one example I would say is your Arogya Setu app. In fact, what recently what the government came up with is it is some sort of a it is an implementation in IoT, because it is a Bluetooth based system which tells, which it coordinates with all the smartphones around you to tell you that if there is a certain person with COVID-19 around you, or how many people are there and how far are they. So this kind of a technologies, of course, is useful in avoiding, like in fighting, combating these pandemics and all. But also in pharmaceutical sector, IoT will eventually create a more efficient delivery system, the drug delivery. Let's say if in rural areas, if you can create some kind of a IoT based device which uh, takes the information from the person suffering from some illness, connects his entire medical history from some cloud, and then helps the doctor sitting in some other place uh, accurately diagnose and then also deliver the right medicine and the right amount of drug through a device in that village, which just dispenses that medicine to that person. So these kind of technologies could come in, and in fact, I know some of the people in the industry who are at this moment working on such devices. Well, but it all comes down to the government, how much they will allow us to use their medical data, how much they will allow us to use their infrastructure to implement such kind of a thing in local level, in village level. It all depends on the regulations.
Also, sir, it will be a very helpful in manufacturing department. Is the particularly
True.
from the operational part, this in the pharmacy industry, it will be very much
Absolutely.
useful. This IoT,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
yes, sir, because these types of creations, this chemical formulations and all those things, the people are trying from so many times. Okay, but there is a limitation to the human mind, but there is no limitation to the machine learning. Okay, so
True.
machine can do the things far more better in comparison to that of the human being. And
True.
so it could be near future. Yes, sir. It's a
Yes.
near future. It
Yes.
is possible that even chemists are not required to do the chemical, different types of chemical tests and all those things.
Formulations.
Machine can do directly, even without not even using the original sort of
Right.
chemicals and all
Right.
those things,
But
and come up with
but
a
we should take that. But we should take that with a caveat, because a
yes,
completely human involvement less technology in a critical sector like healthcare has to be very carefully monitored, because there could be
yes,
huge implications in terms of public health if the system malfunctions. So of course there has to be some human involvement there. But one thing that can happen is all your information technology, or all your artificial intelligence based technologies can help quicken the pace of drug development. Like how we are waiting for a vaccine for COVID-19, and some people are saying that it might take a year or two to really come up with a vaccine. So that those time cycles could be reduced. There could be some way in which the drug trials could be done in a more efficient manner. Some human trials that are happening, some right now those things are done manually. Those things are mostly the data collection is all manual. But eventually, I think more and more IoT can improve that speed of drug development.
definitely. Definitely. So this drawback will always be there. Even the video which you showed,
Right.
shows this particular thing only. Is one will
Right.
have to take care of the things, and one cannot directly make themselves himself or herself dependent on these types of system.
Absolutely.
Monitoring from human being is definitely it's a must. It's a must.
True. True.
Yes. Anybody else
I
from the participant signs?
no, they don't have any query. So I So they are becoming IT ready.
I suppose they want to go start working on those things more than talk about it. So I think everything is there out there. You can search a lot of things on IoT out there. There's a lot of literature, but I think Indian minds, Indian brains, what they need to do right now is start indigenizing these technologies. So find some alternatives, maybe find solutions to these critical challenges, which will be very useful in the future.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, true.
Can I ask the question?
Yes, sure.
Yes.
Yes, I am a Professor Ronak Wadiwala from Sri Patel College from Surat.
Namaskar.
It's IoT is very effective, very advantage in India. Is it proper India? Is it good Indian people for the Internet of Things?
I'm sorry. Can you ask me again?
I want to say something. Many of the people are poor, middle class, and very many of the richest, right? And many of the not awareness about the internet, right? So I don't think so. Okay, this one is very helpful in India.
Okay.
So that's a very big drawback.
That's true, but that's something that's your opinion.
Yeah. So we can just more concentrate on this kind of poor people and middle class people also. Those are not understand the internet, how to use it and how to implement that. That's a video call, and you can learn from the education on online also, and you can prefer it. But nobody can interested because of they guys are just interested to the drawback. You know, like a disadvantage. When you have to many of the time you have to use the mobile and laptop, so it is a effect your body, right? So how can you be able to solve it?
But sir, we can't remain aloof from this type of technology. We had to move with the world, sir. Definitely, it's a genuine cause, very much genuine cause that these kind of poor people and particularly middle class from which even if I can say that I myself belongs to, but we'll have to cope up with the technology, sir. It's not possible that we can.
Right. Ali Awarji, I think this is a techno-ethical challenge for people. In fact, the graphic that I'm showing on the screen right now, you will see that I have kept a very high, value for society within the smart system. In terms of society, in terms of community, in terms of healthcare, in terms of even family level, the purpose of creating these smart systems should be to have some kind of a fulfillment within that society. Now, unfortunately, most of the IoT that we see right now is in the hands of affluent people. It is in the hands of those who can afford. We have invested very less in civic infrastructure, civic IoT infrastructure, which I think we need to do more. And ultimately, the IoT has to work for the welfare of the people. And of course, the lifestyles, individual lifestyles, we cannot do much about it. I think वही होता है कि ultimately आप किसी को मोबाइल फोन दोगे और उसमें आप उसको इंटरनेट डेटा दोगे, तो वो मेरे ख्याल से कोई काम की चीज करने के बजाय and doing something worthwhile, वो जाके YouTube पे वीडियोस देखेगा. So this is something that has to be addressed on individual level in terms of education, in terms of opportunities, and in terms of value and awareness.
So we have one more question. It is again asked by Mr. Nikunj. Do you think machine learning and IoT will take over the R&D domain in the new normal? And won't it be risky considering all the challenges and flaws related to IoT, like hackers and many others?
I think absolutely right. Yes, Professor Ali ji, बताइए.
Kaustubh, please. You. Okay. what happens is that the technology is like that only. It is the two parts of the coin. You can't ignore these types of risks that is associated with every type of thing. Even if you say that you are just leaving your home, taking your bike or your car and reaching to your office, even that might be risky in some cases. There might be some gunda sort of a thing who came in between, who stops you, uh, gives you certain harms or anything like that, or anything other also. Let's say your mobile, your cameras from your home, anything it could be. So technology has both the parts. We need to take care of both the things. We need to use the things smartly. There should be certain limit of the things from ahead of which it should not be allowed to do the things. Definitely, it's a very valid point. It's a very much valid point, because the video which we have which we have seen from Kaustubh sir says this thing only, that there are so many risks in the life if we get attached to these types of IoT. But again, the same thing, we can't remain aloof from these types of technologies. We'll have to cope up with the things. We'll have to take more actions. We have to be more secured, thinking that these types of things are secured. Plus, from the technical point of view, we should be very much into the whole world.
Absolutely. In fact, sir, I would say that R&D में already IoT इतना penetrate कर चुका है कि some of the most advanced scientific researches में IoT is already there in terms of data collection, sensors use करना और data को big data platforms पे लाके उसको analyze करना, because the kind of R&D that is happening is totally data driven now. So all the advanced technologies where we do some mass level R&Ds, वहाँ पे already IoT enough use होता है. In fact, space technology की बात करें, हम space में जो भी हम कर रहे हैं उसमें IoT major role play करता है. इनफैक्ट आपका जितना भी मेडिकल हेल्थ केयर है उसमें काफी हद तक ऑलरेडी IoT रिसर्च R&D में आ गया. लेकिन द थिंग इज यू कैन नॉट टेक द ह्यूमन बीइंग आउट ऑफ द इक्वेशन. आपको हर जगह पे अल्टीमेटली ह्यूमन बीइंग्स को तो रखना ही पड़ेगा, क्योंकि no matter how intelligent your systems get, how advanced your machine learning algorithms become, but ultimately your machine is always at risk of being attacked by hackers, being manipulated, or even if there are faults built in, like your device could in fact malfunction because of its own internal architecture. It could start assessing it could start analyzing the data and might come up with patterns which are just those because of some unrelated data. It could just create some patterns which ultimately do not yield any insight. That could also happen. So in fact, to see that, वो margin of error को कम रखने के लिए उसमें आपको एक human element रखना ही पड़ेगा who always double checks the things, because आप completely rely नहीं कर पाएंगे कभी भी. I don't think there would be any future where critical infrastructure or critical systems will be completely left on AI or
Machines.
Automatic systems. Yes, on machines.
I have one question.
Yes, Tanmay.
So, keeping in mind the advantages and disadvantages of IoT, can we fully trust on this type of systems?
Can we? Sorry, I did not get the word.
Can we
Tanmay,
fully
repeat.
trust? Sir, keeping in mind the advantages and disadvantages of IoT, can we fully trust on this type of systems?
No. The simple answer is
Fully
no.
trust.
Well, the simple answer is no. Not as of now, and maybe not in future also, because
Not in
looking at
future
how hackers are also upping, they're also gaining their technologies, how they are also becoming more smart in attacking those IoT based systems. So I think in future also we won't be able to completely trust, but yes, you can have some security implementations. Of course, that is a never-ending fight. And that is why even in the market segmentation that I showed you, this is only a broad market segmentation that I showed you. Well, apart from this, there is a major market segment of IoT security. That itself is a huge market where you will need future technologies to secure all of these technologies. So you will have to, that is a never ending battle that you will have to fight. You will have to adapt to the new technologies, you will have to adapt to the IoTs, but you will have to also work on the security. You will also have to keep these hackers out. You will also have to see that these systems don't malfunction. Of course, it's all about, you know, finding the solution.
It's just that, sir, we need to weigh the positivities and the negativities, and then if we find it more beneficial, then on such basis, we need to decide whether it is to be adopted or not. We
Right.
have one more question. I think after this we can wind up. Would this IoT and AI could be capable to help visually challenged people to enhance their banking activities, including security issues?
uh, uh, we have already got into these types of all these types of problems, because we right now into the present world also we have the devices where a dumb person can speak through these types of devices. Means usually actually he is dumb person, he cannot speak anything, but just from his inner self, means the device has the capability of sensing what he wants to say, converts that senses into words, into text first, and then into the voice afterwards. So we are moving into these types of critical situations also, and then definitely we are moving into these types of visually challenged people also. There are already devices, there are many types of devices which help them in different areas, but particularly this visually challenged, or let's say this dumb people, or the one people who can't hear properly, for all these people we are into the things. Means we, in the sense, the world is into the things who are going for development of these types of different technologies.
Right. I think disabilities are being addressed by IoT in a manner that has never been done before. This is something, I think it's a whole different segment altogether, where there are technologies being developed for visually impaired, for you know, any other manner challenged in some way. So it's all about augmentation of the reality. So augmented reality is a major outcome of IoT devices, and your digital and your real world data can be used in n number of ways to create a sense of things, even for those who can't see. I mean, they can sense from other sensory perceptions. So that kind of a IoT is being developed. In fact, there are many, I think within banking also, there are also a lot of accessibility features have been developed by banking service providers to help everybody transact, even if they are visually impaired.
Right, sir. I think it's time that we should wind up now. Ali, sir, I think we should wind up.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So
Absolutely.
thank you so much,
Great
Kaustubh
session,
sir.
great discussions.
It was a great session. It was a new learning for me also. And thank you. Wonderful session. Thank you, Ali, sir. If they
Thank
have
you so
any
much.
other,
Thank you.
we can.
Thank you, ma'am. Kaustubh sir, thank you so
Okay.
much. You spared the time for us.
Thank you
People
again.
are
Seriously, you have given
Thank
us
you.
so
particularly
much
for these
time
things only.
and so much knowledge. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Thank you, everybody, all the participants, all the respected guests, and everybody. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.